Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lecture of Teachly University. And in this lecture today, we're going to be discussing the art of communication. And when I talk about communication, I'm not just talking about how we communicate necessarily with other people, but really how we also communicate with ourselves and how we can better understand the world around us so that we can improve our results in our business and our personal lives, and how we can make the intangible tangible. And I'll discuss what that means a little bit later on in the lecture. And like with every lecture, I want to start with a quote, and this is from George Bernard Shaw, who said, "The biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." And this is relevant. This quote is relevant, I think, for our current world that we live in today. And I said this before in my other lectures, that we live in a very complex and imperfect world. And we're all very busy. As you can see in this image here, all of us in our own little worlds, we're sort of very narrowly focused on our own problems and what's going on with our own lives. And this is natural. But in this very busy world, we are bombarded with information, and many forces try to communicate to us lots of information. But living in this very complex world where we're burdened with so much information, we have a common problem, which is that many of us are inflicted with this vagueness and ambiguity that comes along with living life. There's this mystery, there's confusion, there's this sort of vagueness that we're all succumbing to, that is making life become increasingly confusing and stressful. And there's a reason why so many of us feel anxious and are burned out, because there's this mystery and a vagueness and ambiguity when it comes to how to get results in our business, in our personal lives, in our relationships. And it's this vagueness that I think many of us are really plagued with, that is creating a host of emotional problems that is really impairing our quality of life. And where we see this vagueness and this confusion and this mystery that it seems when it comes to trying to get results in many aspects of our lives. We find this vagueness in entrepreneurship, and this is very common for many startups and young entrepreneurs who try to start their business, but maybe they don't necessarily know how. They don't have the capital, the resources. Maybe they have the product or service already established, but they don't necessarily have a system in place as to how they're going to market that product or service. There's just so many unknowns and mysteries and misunderstandings and confusion and vagueness when it comes to starting a business. And there's a reason why so many small businesses end up going under, why so many businesses fail within a few years. It's because of this confusion and these unknowns that can plague a business from growing. Where we also see this vagueness is when we're trying to find a job or career path. This is also very common. And when it comes to finding a job, we live in a very, very competitive world. And trying to find a job today is increasingly difficult. And I will argue that a resume, which is one of the most common tools that job seekers use to find employment, as far as I'm concerned, is obsolete. And the reason is because resumes ultimately don't do much in terms of showcasing our talents and abilities. You may disagree with that, or some people may disagree with that, but resumes really don't get into the heart of the matter, as I'll explain in the next couple of minutes, as to the specificity of how our strengths can solve a particular problem. Also, we find this vagueness when it comes to pursuing a specific career. There's so many different paths that we can choose. It can often be very confusing. Again, with all this information that we are bombarded with on a daily basis, many of us sometimes don't know what it is that we want to do. Again, it's this void that we all experience that can create a host of problems. Also, we see, when it comes to meeting the right people, it can be very vague and confusing. We're social creatures, and many of us struggle perhaps to be in the right social circles that can bring us joy and fulfillment and bring about positive social interactions that can improve our lives. There can be vagueness there as well. How do we meet the right people, or people that we get along with, or that we're socially compatible with? Those are some important questions that may be difficult to answer. And that can lead to emotional discontent. All of us perhaps have experienced frustration and fear and other negative emotions. And perhaps maybe the vagueness that exists is that we don't know why we feel a certain way, or perhaps we do, but we're afraid to really get to the heart of the problem as to why we feel a certain way. And in order to bring about change, then, to improve our lives or to improve how we communicate with ourselves and others, it requires making the intangible tangible. This means cutting through the fog and getting to the heart of the problem or what is causing us pain and discomfort. It's a process of simplicity and specificity, which presents enormous opportunities for personal and business transformation. What do I mean by making the intangible tangible? What I mean is that all of us yearn to sink our teeth into something, for something that makes sense, so that when we start to make tangible a system or process, by doing this, it can lead us to improve our results, whether it was starting a business, finding a career or a job, improving our relationships. We want something that makes sense. And when you look at some of the most profound businesses or most successful businesses and products and services that exist, they do a very good job at making the intangible tangible. Whether it's sales systems that professional marketers create to help salespeople improve their sales processes, whether it's a new computer that can perhaps help improve our creativity or our creative expression. This is something that Steve Jobs was able to do, where when he first created Apple computers, he recognized a trend or a need before consumers even recognized this need. And again, it was making the intangible tangible. Steve Jobs was a master at this. But whatever that is, by making the intangible tangible, by getting specific and clear and getting to the essence of what plagues us, or being able to be as specific as we can with how we communicate with others, can lead to a very profound impact. And a very good example of making the intangible tangible is in sales. All of us, whether we want to believe it or not, are salespeople. We're all trying to sell something, whether we're trying to sell a product or service, as in this image here, or whether we're trying to sell ourselves, whether we're trying to apply to a job, start a career, or maybe when we're trying to interact with other people and develop relationships. It's about establishing value and really being able to communicate what our strengths are and what our desires are. And when it comes to sales, why so many salespeople struggle is that they have a hard time making the intangible tangible, meaning that they never get to the heart of why their product or service can solve a particular problem or how a customer can benefit from that product or service. Selling products or services effectively requires being as specific as possible about the benefits of your product or service. Communicating the benefits of your business means tapping into the emotional buttons of the customer that will entice them to buy, because the driving force behind consumerism are our emotions. Why do we buy products or services? We buy them because of a specific feeling that product or service gives us. We're emotional creatures. Emotions are what drives why we buy many of the products and services we purchase on a given day. And once you begin understanding that, then that can help make your job easier, especially if you're an entrepreneur, when it comes to developing a product or service with the consumer in mind. So let's say, for example, and this is just a generic example here, maybe we're an entrepreneur, we're created an accounting software and that we're trying to sell in the open market. And this is what I'm talking about, specificity here. So with a mistake that a lot of salespeople will make is that they talk about the features of the product when they should really be talking about are the benefits. So these are some of the benefits of this generic accounting software that we've created, that perhaps it can cut the average time a small business does their bookkeeping by half. Bookkeeping can be a very tedious and time-consuming process, and your new accounting software can cut this time in half. This can save us time. This product could also save you money. This can save your small business money by catching redundant or unnecessary transactions, saving you up to $5,000. Again, the specificity, specific numbers, benefits, saving time, saving money. You only pay for use of the software if it saves your business money, reducing the amount of risk and barriers in the transaction. And when it comes to relationships in business and in personal life, it's reducing the risk of entering that relationship or that transaction. We all make decisions, whether we realize it or not, based on risk. We want to buy a product or enter a relationship with the least amount of risk possible. Another example of benefit, it has 1 week learning curve where you can do your own bookkeeping without the need of hiring an accountant. Accountants can cost you money. You can do more with less. This is more of a generic example, but there's so many ways that we can learn to get specific when it comes to the benefits of a product and service that we're trying to sell in the open market. Customers purchase products and services because it fills a void many of us have. If our speech, product, or service fills that void, then unlimited opportunities are created for massive profit and helping others. If you are an entrepreneur and you have a product or service, you want to figure out what the void is that this product or service is trying to fill with consumers. All of us, again, that ambiguity, that vagueness, that mystery that exists, that confusion, if we can make people's lives a little bit better, that can develop products and services that can fill a need, fill in that void, make people's lives easier, make people feel good in a positive way, that can lead to substantial financial profits and also to be able to help others, which is the most important thing. These are crucial. It's getting to the heart of the matter, getting specific. But when it comes to our own personal growth, as I've said, we all have these voids, this vagueness that plagues many of aspects of our lives. To help us fill in these voids, perhaps we have to start asking questions. And there's actually a fable that I'm listening to this audiobook that on Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And there's a story in the audiobook where it discusses about a farmer who works 12, 15-hour days, just ridiculously long days out in the field. And he's exhausted. And one day at the end of his work, he was basically looking up at the sky and leaning against his rake. And he was asking himself, Lord, why is it that I work so hard and yet earn so little? And I think this question so many of us can relate to. So many of us work so hard, but yet we don't earn enough or we don't get enough fulfillment into what it is that we're doing. It's that question that reveals the mystery and the vagueness and the confusion that many of us have when it comes to improving our business and personal lives. But it's asking that question that begins the process of then coming up with solutions that can help us solve these problems. But it all requires getting specific, making the intangible tangible. So that, again, by doing that, if we can figure out a way that can improve our lives, we can develop processes or products and services that can help others. And that is the essence of entrepreneurship. It is solving problems and making the intangible tangible. And by doing that, by making a habit of making the intangible tangible, that can help us communicate not just with others, but with ourselves. It's another way to look at how we communicate with ourselves and the world around us. So I hope you enjoyed watching this lecture. You can visit my website at teachinguniversity.com. We can view all my lectures and courses. You can also subscribe to my email list where you can get updated news and events on Teaching University. I also recommend you subscribe to my YouTube channel where you can get updates on all my new lectures. So thank you again for watching this lecture, and I'll see you next time.